In a world constantly saturated with images, whether from billboards, social media, magazines, or TV screens, how much of what we see truly reflects who we are? And how much of it is the result of carefully crafted illusions designed to shape our perceptions and, in turn, shape us? The lines between reality and image, between identity and invention, have never been so blurred. Welcome to The Art of Self-Invention, Image and Identity in Popular Visual Culture by Joanne Finkelstein, a book that explores the profound power of image and its relationship with identity in the world of popular visual culture. Consider the celebrities you admire, the influencers you follow, or even the way you present yourself to the world online. How much of that image is authentic, and how much is curated to meet certain expectations or desires? Finkelstein dives deep into the history and mechanisms of this process of self-invention, illuminating how popular visual culture has become a vehicle for identity transformation. It's an art form, a social dance where appearances and perceptions are often more influential than reality itself. Finkelstein asks critical questions that challenge our understanding of image-making. What happens when the concept of self becomes tied to the ever-evolving image we project? How do visual representations in media, whether in advertising, television, or social platforms, affect our sense of identity? And most importantly, how can we break free from these constructs to discover who we are underneath the masks we wear? This is not just a book for those interested in the world of fashion, celebrity, or media. It's for anyone who has ever felt the pressure to fit into a mold, to meet expectations, or to construct an image that others will accept. Finkelstein's exploration of visual culture offers a compelling analysis of how our identities are not just something we are born with, but something we can shape, invent, and reinvent in a world that places tremendous value on appearance. By peeling back the layers of our visual culture, she uncovers the strategies, ideologies, and social dynamics that influence our self-presentation. This is a journey that questions the authenticity of self-expression and invites us to rethink our relationship with the images we create for ourselves and others. It asks us to confront the ways we participate in the ongoing art of self-invention and to consider whether that art is truly freeing or whether it traps us in a cycle of constantly performing for an audience that may not even see us for who we really are. As you listen to this journey into the art of self-invention, consider this. What does your image say about you? Are you the artist or the canvas? Are you inventing yourself, or are you simply fulfilling a role that was designed for you? This book, rich in insights and analysis, will leave you questioning the images you encounter every day and challenging you to explore the authentic self hiding beneath the surface. Are you ready to discover what lies beyond the image? Welcome to The Art of Self-Invention. Introduction: Image and Identity, a complex relationship. Joanne Finkelstein opens The Art of Self-Invention by discussing the complex relationship between image and identity. This opening sets the tone for the rest of the book, focusing on the ways in which popular culture and visual representation shape how we see ourselves and how others perceive us. Finkelstein explores the idea of self-invention, the process through which individuals, influenced by media, advertisements, fashion, and the arts, craft their identities. She introduces the reader to the central question of the book. How do images in popular culture shape our understanding of who we are and how we present ourselves? Finkelstein's key argument is that identity is not a static or inherent truth, but something that is constantly being constructed, reconstructed, and performed through the images we consume. The introduction sets up the rest of the book's exploration of the interplay between visual culture and personal identity, showing how the two are often intertwined in a way that is far from straightforward. Chapter 1: The Power of Image in Shaping Identity. In the first chapter, Finkelstein dives into the historical and cultural context of image-making and its deep ties to identity formation. She traces how visual representations, from paintings and advertisements to digital media, have long been used to communicate social status, gender roles, race, and class. These images are not just passive reflections of reality. Rather, they actively create and shape the reality they depict. Finkelstein takes the reader through a brief history of image making, focusing particularly on how visual culture in the 20th and 21st centuries has intensified. She describes the rise of celebrity culture and the impact of advertising and mass media on personal identity. She suggests that our current understanding of identity is deeply influenced by these images, which often reduce the complexity of individuals into simple, marketable visuals. The chapter also explores how consumerism plays a role in self-invention. With the rise of mass production and consumer culture, people have come to see themselves not just as individuals, but as brands or products to be marketed. Finkelstein discusses the concept of the self as a brand and how this idea has influenced both personal and public identity in contemporary society. The message is clear. We are constantly curating our identities, often with as much attention to visual presentation as to inner qualities. Chapter 2: Visual Culture and the Politics of Representation. Chapter 2 shifts the focus to the politics of representation in visual culture. Finkelstein examines how power structures are built into the images we consume. She draws attention to the fact that visual culture is not neutral. Rather, it is embedded with ideologies that reinforce or challenge existing power dynamics. Finkelstein takes a critical look at how race, gender, and class are represented in popular media and advertising. For example, she explores how racial minorities are often stereotyped or marginalized, while white, cisgender, and heterosexual individuals are typically positioned as the norm or the ideal. Through these images, society sends a message about what is considered acceptable or desirable. She also addresses how women's bodies have been objectified in the media. The chapter delves into how the visual representation of women has often been designed to meet the needs of male gaze and patriarchal standards. In contrast, women's image-making is discussed as a form of resistance and empowerment, where women reclaim control over how they are seen and how they express their identities. Through these discussions, Finkelstein emphasizes that visual culture is not just about personal expression, but also a powerful tool for political and social influence. Images can either challenge or uphold stereotypes and societal norms, and they are often used by both individuals and institutions to assert power. Chapter 3: Self-Invention and the Image of the Ideal Self. In Chapter 3, Finkelstein shifts focus to self-invention as a means of shaping one's identity. She discusses how individuals, particularly in Western culture, often strive to create an idealized version of themselves, one that is not necessarily authentic, but reflects the aspirational image promoted by popular culture. The chapter explores the role of fashion, beauty standards, and social media in this process of self-creation. Finkelstein argues that many people craft their identities by emulating images that they believe represent success, happiness, or fulfillment. However, these images often come with unattainable standards like the perfect body, successful career, or ideal family, and can lead to feelings of inadequacy or disconnection when real life doesn't measure up. Finkelstein analyzes how the ideal self is constructed through media portrayals and how this process has become commodified. She talks about how marketers and advertisers have played a key role in shaping people's perceptions of what they should aspire to be. As a result, individuals often use these media representations to mimic the ideals they see, even if it leads to an inauthentic expression of self. This chapter touches upon the psychological impact of striving for an idealized self, including issues like self-esteem and the pressure to conform to external expectations. Finkelstein concludes that the process of self-invention through images is complex and often fraught with contradictions, as people strive to present themselves as their ideal selves while navigating the gap between image and authenticity. Chapter 4: The Body as a Canvas, Fashion, Style, and Identity. Chapter 4 delves into the significance of fashion and style in self-invention. Finkelstein examines how clothing and appearance are not just about practicality, but are powerful tools for communicating personal identity. She explores the psychology of fashion, noting how people use clothing choices to make statements about who they are or who they want to be. In discussing the body as a canvas, Finkelstein traces the evolution of fashion from Victorian ideals of modesty to the modern era of self-expression through style. She notes that while fashion can be empowering, it can also be restrictive, often influenced by gender norms, cultural expectations, and social class. She provides a critical analysis of the fashion industry's role in shaping beauty ideals, arguing that the constant creation of trends and the commodification of style lead to a fluid yet oppressive relationship between identity and appearance. For instance, while fashion offers the possibility of reinvention, it can also trap people into following transient trends rather than cultivating a true sense of personal identity. Finkelstein looks at the impact of fashion icons, from historical figures like Coco Chanel to modern-day influencers, and how these figures influence identity construction through their curated image. Through style, individuals can express their social status, values, and aspirations, but often at the cost of being beholden to societal ideals of beauty and success. Chapter 5: The Digital Revolution: Identity in the Age of Social Media. In Chapter 5, Finkelstein discusses how the rise of the digital age and social media has radically changed the way we perceive and present ourselves. She examines platforms like Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, and how they have created new spaces for people to curate and perform their identities. Finkelstein critiques how these platforms encourage individuals to create an image of themselves that is edited, idealized, and often far removed from reality. She points out that the pressure to portray a flawless image has led to an increase in photo manipulation and editing apps, which further complicates the relationship between self-perception and external presentation. However, the chapter also acknowledges that social media can be empowering, especially for marginalized groups. It provides a platform for people to reclaim narratives, challenge stereotypes, and create alternative images of identity. Social media allows individuals to construct their identities on their own terms, though often with the same pressures to conform to certain standards of beauty or success. Finkelstein discusses how the selfie culture has created a new form of self-expression, one that combines intimacy with performance. In this digital space, identity is no longer something fixed, but a fluid, performative act that can be carefully constructed and altered at will. Chapter 6: Image as a Reflection of Power. Chapter 6 examines how visual culture can function as a reflection and reinforcement of power dynamics. Finkelstein argues that images are not just representations of individuals, but tools used to assert dominance and control. From political propaganda to the portrayal of celebrities and leaders, images shape how people are perceived in terms of authority and status. Finkelstein also explores how corporate brands and advertisements project authority by aligning themselves with power, often creating visuals that appeal to consumers' desires for status and success. This use of image, she argues, isn't just about selling products, but about selling a vision of a life aligned with power. She takes a closer look at how celebrities and influencers are portrayed as idealized figures who embody the power and success that many people desire to replicate. Through their visual representation, these figures become symbols of aspiration, often embodying influences of class, race, and gender that position them as desirable and powerful. Chapter 7: The Body in the Image: Gender and Sexuality. In this chapter, Finkelstein explores the role of the body in image-making, particularly in relation to gender and sexuality. The body is not only the physical vessel we inhabit, but also a powerful medium through which we express our identities. Finkelstein argues that gendered and sexualized imagery often dominates visual culture, shaping how we view ourselves and others. The chapter provides a critical examination of the objectification of women's bodies in media and advertising. Finkelstein examines how the portrayal of women often focuses on their physical appearance, objectifying them as sexualized objects meant for male consumption. The chapter discusses how these images influence not only women's self-perception, but also how they are treated in society. Finkelstein also touches on how gender fluidity and the deconstruction of binary gender categories are becoming more visible in media representations. She analyzes how non-binary individuals, as well as those who do not conform to traditional gender norms, are challenging the traditional roles assigned to men and women. The chapter highlights how the visual representation of gender is evolving and becoming more inclusive, allowing for a greater range of expression and identity. The body, according to Finkelstein, becomes a site of resistance, where individuals can assert agency and challenge the rigid norms surrounding gender and sexuality. She also delves into the politics of body image, discussing how representations of ideal bodies can be both empowering and damaging. Images that emphasize a narrow definition of beauty can be harmful to mental health, particularly when they don't reflect the diversity of human bodies. Chapter 8: Celebrity Culture and the Image of the Self. Chapter 8 turns its focus to celebrity culture, an integral part of modern visual culture. Finkelstein argues that celebrities have become the modern archetypes of self-invention, constantly curating their public image to align with their brand, persona, and, ultimately, their marketability. These carefully constructed images are used as templates for personal identity creation by millions of fans, influencers, and consumers. Finkelstein explores how celebrities' public personas are often radically different from their private selves, shaped by teams of agents, publicists, and stylists who manage their image. These public figures represent an idealized version of the self, which, while captivating, is often a performance that requires constant upkeep. Through the lens of celebrity culture, Finkelstein reveals how the boundary between authenticity and performance becomes blurred, with public personas being seen as just as real as private identities. She also examines the role of social media in transforming the nature of celebrity, allowing celebrities to bypass traditional media gatekeepers and present their image directly to their audiences. This gives them a degree of control over their narrative, but it also opens the door for more intimate forms of self-representation, where vulnerability and imperfection become part of the allure. However, Finkelstein also critiques the toxic aspects of celebrity culture, including the unrealistic beauty standards and the emphasis on superficiality. The constant cycle of image management in celebrity culture contributes to a sense of self-doubt in the general public, as people compare their lives to the curated, filtered versions of reality presented by celebrities. She suggests that while celebrities provide templates for self-invention, their images can also reinforce unattainable ideals that can be damaging to both personal identity and society at large. Chapter 9: The Marketplace of Identity, Advertising and Consumerism. In Chapter 9, Finkelstein turns her attention to advertising and consumerism and how they serve as crucial tools in the marketplace of identity. Advertising, she argues, is not just about selling products. It's about selling lifestyle images that people can aspire to. Through advertising, companies create visual narratives that intertwine with the consumer's desires for identity and social status. Finkelstein explores the concept of brand identity, noting that we are constantly encouraged to purchase products that reflect the lifestyle we wish to live. Advertisements frequently offer a vision of the perfect life, in which products become a way to access social belonging, success, and happiness. She explains how brands themselves have become symbolic of identity, with people often associating their worth and status with the brands they choose. Through case studies of iconic advertising campaigns, Finkelstein shows how certain brands, whether it's luxury cars, cosmetics, or fashion brands, convey specific messages about the kind of people who use them. These images serve as signifiers of class, wealth, attractiveness, and power, reinforcing social norms and stereotypes. She also discusses how advertising perpetuates the myth of individual choice, suggesting that people can invent themselves through their consumption choices, all while aligning with the broader market's definitions of success and aspiration. This commodification of identity is problematic, Finkelstein argues, because it reduces personal identity to a product to be purchased rather than something intrinsic and multifaceted. Chapter 10: The Digital Persona, Social Media, and the Construction of Identity. Chapter 10 shifts gears to examine how digital media and social networks have changed the way we curate and perform our identities. Finkelstein focuses on how platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook allow individuals to actively construct their identities in ways that were not possible before the digital age. Finkelstein explores the power of selfies and personal branding in this digital space. The selfie, for instance, allows people to take control over their image, often transforming it into an art form in itself. Social media allows people to edit, filter, and manipulate their photos, creating an idealized version of their lives that can be shared with a wide audience. However, Finkelstein points out the dangers of this digital self-presentation. Social media, she argues, encourages a culture of comparison, where users are constantly evaluating their worth based on the likes, comments, and followers they receive. This creates an environment where personal identity is continuously constructed and validated by external approval, leading to identity fragmentation and a disconnection from one's authentic self. The chapter also touches on the issue of digital authenticity, whether it's possible to be real in a space so inherently curated. Finkelstein examines the increasing trend of influencers and digital personas who market themselves as relatable and authentic, yet still operate within a framework of brand management and image crafting. Ultimately, the chapter underscores how social media complicates the relationship between authenticity and performance, urging readers to critically assess how their digital personas impact their sense of self. Chapter 11: The Future of Self-Invention, Identity in the Postmodern Age. The final chapter looks to the future of self-invention, examining how identity may continue to evolve in the postmodern era. Finkelstein reflects on the fluidity of identity in contemporary culture, where the rigid boundaries that once defined who we were are becoming increasingly blurred. She argues that in the postmodern age, identity is no longer something fixed or stable, but is instead constantly being reinvented and reimagined. Finkelstein explores the influence of technology, globalization, and cultural shifts in creating a more multidimensional understanding of self. With the rise of virtual realities, avatars, and online personas, she predicts that identity will become even more disembodied and fragmented, with people freely moving between different personas depending on the platform or context. However, she also raises concerns about the implications of this new age of self-invention. In a world where identity can be endlessly reinvented, there is a risk that people may lose touch with their authentic selves and become overwhelmed by the pressure to constantly perform and recreate their image. Finkelstein concludes by encouraging readers to be more mindful of the ways in which they construct their identities, urging them to engage in self-invention with a sense of awareness and authenticity, rather than simply falling into the trap of external validation. Conclusion: Reclaiming the Self in the Age of Image. In the conclusion of The Art of Self-Invention, Finkelstein summarizes the central themes of the book, reflecting on the role of visual culture in shaping identity. She argues that while image-making can be a powerful tool for personal expression and self-reinvention, it is crucial to recognize the complexities and pressures that come with living in a world dominated by visual media. Finkelstein encourages the reader to approach the process of self-invention with a critical eye, being aware of the societal forces that shape the images we consume and the identities we project. She stresses the importance of reclaiming authenticity in a world that often prioritizes performativity and conformity. Ultimately, Finkelstein's message is one of empowerment. While we cannot escape the influence of visual culture, we can take control of how we engage with it. By understanding the dynamics of image and identity, we can make conscious decisions about how we wish to be seen, both by others and by ourselves. Thanks for listening. Please like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to get new video updates. Happy learning!